Charleston, South Carolina, March 1842. The hammer struck iron with mathematical precision, 17 times per minute, the rhythm Raphael Ashford had perfected over 14 years. Each blow shaped more than metal. Each spark illuminated patterns invisible to everyone else in the shop. Raphael was 28 years old, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds of muscle forged by endless hours at the anvil. His hands bore scars from 1,000 burns, his back marked by punishment from his youth. But his eyes, those were what separated him from other enslaved blacksmiths in Charleston's commercial district. They absorbed everything, remembered everything, calculated everything. The Ashford family had purchased him in 1828 for $1,200, a significant investment for a 14-year-old boy. Richard Ashford, the patriarch, recognized exceptional talent when he saw it. Young Raphael learned faster than any apprentice, white or black, that Richard had ever trained. By age 20, Raphael could forge anything: ship anchors, carriage wheels, plantation tools, decorative ironwork for mansion gates. The workshop sat 3 blocks from Charleston Harbor, embedded in the heart of the city's commercial pulse. Cotton merchants passed by daily. Ship captains stopped for repairs. Plantation owners commissioned custom tools. And they all talked. They talked about money, about debts, about investments, about vulnerabilities they would never discuss in formal settings. Raphael listened. What none of them knew, what even Richard Ashford didn't know, was that Raphael could read. Not just simple words, but contracts, ledgers, financial documents. He had taught himself at age 16, stealing moments with newspapers, used to wrap iron shipments, studying legal documents left carelessly on Richard's desk. His memory was photographic. A single glance at a promissory note, and Raphael could recall every number, every date, every clause months later. For 14 years, this secret remained locked inside him. For 14 years, he played the role of the loyal, skilled, but ultimately ignorant enslaved craftsman. For 14 years, he waited. March 15, 1842, was the day everything changed. Raphael was working on a commission, 20 iron hinges for a plantation door, when he heard the conversation. Richard Ashford and his son William stood 15 feet away, voices low but not whispered. Raphael's hammer continued its steady rhythm, his expression blank, his ears sharp. "Father, I need $800 by Friday," William said. His voice carried the entitled edge of a 23-year-old who had never been denied anything. "The debt must be settled." "Gambling again?" Richard's tone mixed disappointment with resignation. "How many times, William?" "It doesn't matter how. I need $800 or Beaumont will make this public. You know what that means for our reputation." Beaumont. Raphael's hammer paused for a fraction of a second, imperceptible to the Ashfords, screaming significant to anyone who truly knew him. The Beaumont family owned the second largest private bank in Charleston. They financed half the plantations in the Lowcountry. They were creditors to dozens of merchant families, including the Ashfords. "We don't have 800 in liquid capital," Richard said. "The cotton investment won't pay until September. The shipping venture is delayed." "Then sell something, sell property, sell—" William hesitated, then said the word that would haunt Raphael forever. "Sell Marcus." The hammer slipped, just slightly. Just enough that the iron piece shifted, the angle wrong. Raphael corrected immediately, but his heart was no longer beating at its normal rhythm. Marcus, his younger brother, 24 years old, working in the Ashford household as a butler. The only family Raphael had left after their mother died in 1835, and their father was sold to a Mississippi plantation in 1837. "Marcus is worth more than 800, Richard said slowly, thinking. "Good house servant, well-trained, healthy. We could get 1,200, perhaps 1,500. Then get 1,500 and I'll have money left over." Raphael's hands continued working. The iron bent, shaped, cooled. His face showed nothing. Inside, something fundamental was breaking and reforming, like metal under extreme heat. 3 days later, Marcus was sold to a rice plantation 40 miles north of Charleston. Sale price, $800 exactly. Rushed sale, below market value. William Ashford paid his gambling debt to the Beaumont family. Life continued normally for everyone, except Raphael. That night, alone in the small quarters behind the workshop, Raphael allowed himself 1 hour. 1 hour to feel the grief, the rage, the helplessness. He had survived seeing his mother work herself to death. He had endured watching his father dragged away in chains. But Marcus had been hope. The possibility that someone from his family might survive, might somehow find freedom, might live a life worth living. Now that hope was converted into gambling chips. After 1 hour, Raphael locked the grief away. What replaced it was cold, precise, and infinitely patient. He would not run. He would not rebel violently. He would not do anything that the system expected from an enslaved man pushed beyond endurance. He would think. Over the following weeks, Raphael began truly paying attention, not just to conversations in his workshop, but to patterns. The Ashfords were not unique in their financial instability. Nearly every wealthy family in Charleston carried significant debt. The entire Southern economy functioned on credit, speculation, and the assumption that cotton prices would remain high forever. Richard Ashford owed money to 7 different creditors. The largest debt, $45,000, was held by Beaumont Bank, secured against the Ashford properties and assets. Richard's investments were overextended. 2 shipping ventures that hadn't returned profit in 18 months, cotton speculation that depended on a good harvest, and a partnership in a textile mill that was bleeding money. Raphael knew this because he listened. He listened when Richard met with his accountant in the workshop office. He listened when creditors visited, their conversations echoing off iron walls. He listened when merchants gossiped about who was financially sound and who was hiding desperation behind expensive clothes and grand parties. By May 1842, Raphael had mentally mapped the entire financial structure of the Ashford family. He saw the weak points, the pressure areas, the places where a small push could create significant damage. But he also saw something else. The Ashfords were not his only target. The Beaumont family, the ones who had received $800 of Marcus's worth, they were creditors to dozens of families. They operated with arrogance, certain their banking position made them untouchable. Raphael decided to destroy them both. Not immediately, not impulsively. This would require years, possibly decades. It would require building trust, expanding influence, creating opportunities that didn't yet exist. It would require him to become more valuable, more trusted, more essential to the Ashford family than he already was. So Raphael went to work. He improved his craftsmanship. He took on more complex projects. He began waking at 4 in the morning to complete commissions early, impressing clients with speed and quality. His reputation spread. Plantation owners from as far as Georgetown began requesting his work specifically. In July 1843, a wealthy merchant named Thomas Grayson visited the workshop. His carriage had broken an axle 3 blocks away. Raphael worked for 6 hours straight, forging a replacement axle that Grayson claimed was better than the original. "Remarkable," Grayson said, examining the work. "Richard, you have a treasure here. I'd pay a premium for work like this." "Raphael is the finest blacksmith in Charleston," Richard agreed, pride evident, pride in property. "Would you consider renting his services?" Grayson asked. "I have a project, ironwork for a new commercial building, 3 months of work. I'll pay $12 per week." Richard calculated quickly. $12 per week, 3 months. That was over $150 for work Richard wouldn't have to supervise, using another client's materials. "Raphael remains my property. I would require oversight rights and 60% of payments." Done. It was the first time Raphael worked outside direct Ashford supervision. For 3 months in late 1843, he worked on Grayson's building project, and for 3 months, he expanded his observation range. Grayson was connected to 15 different merchant families. His office received a constant flow of businessmen discussing contracts, debts, opportunities, and failures. Raphael absorbed it all. By December 1843, he understood Charleston's commercial ecosystem better than most white merchants. He knew who was genuinely wealthy and who was leveraged to the edge of collapse. He knew which banks were stable and which were taking dangerous risks. He knew which crops were likely to succeed and which investments were doomed, and he began to see the connections. The Ashford family owed money to Beaumont Bank, but Beaumont Bank had extended similar large loans to at least 6 other families, all backed by cotton speculation. If cotton prices dropped, or if several families defaulted simultaneously, Beaumont Bank would face a crisis. The plan began forming. In January 1844, Raphael approached Richard Ashford with unusual boldness. "Master Richard, I request permission to speak about business." Richard looked up from his desk, surprised. In 16 years, Raphael had never initiated a business conversation. Speak. My work brings clients here daily. Many express interest in commissions beyond current capacity. If you permitted me to work on Sundays, my rest day, I could fulfill these commissions. I would give 90% of earnings to you. I would keep 10% for personal needs. It was a calculated risk. Asking to work on the Sabbath violated social norms, but Raphael framed it as generating profit for Richard, not freedom for himself. Richard considered for 3 long minutes. 10% is generous for you. It would allow me to purchase small comforts without requesting funds from you, Master Richard. It would make me more self-sufficient, less financial burden. Richard nodded slowly. The logic was sound. An enslaved worker generating his own maintenance costs while producing additional revenue. It was good business. Approved Sundays only. No work that interferes with Monday obligations, and you'll maintain accounts for my review. Yes, Master Richard. It was a small victory. But victories compound. For the next 4 years, Raphael worked 7 days per week. His Sunday projects were small, knife repairs, decorative pieces, custom tools, but steady. By December 1848, he had accumulated $340 in personal savings, hidden in a locked box buried beneath the workshop floor. $340 represented roughly 6 months of a skilled white craftsman's salary. For an enslaved man, it was almost unthinkable wealth. But Raphael wasn't saving for comfort. He was saving for leverage. During these same 4 years, Raphael cultivated something even more valuable than money: trust. He became indispensable. When Richard needed to meet clients, Raphael accompanied him, silent, carrying tools, apparently just a well-trained assistant. Nobody paid attention to the enslaved blacksmith standing in the corner during business negotiations. Raphael paid attention to everything. He learned which families were planning to expand cotton production. He learned which merchants were securing exclusive shipping contracts. He learned which banks were tightening credit and which were desperately seeking new borrowers. And he learned that the Ashford family's financial situation was deteriorating. Richard's textile mill partnership had collapsed in 1846, losing $12,000. One of his shipping ventures sank in a storm in 1847, uninsured. His cotton speculation in 1848 yielded poor returns due to an early frost in Georgia. By the end of 1848, the Ashford family's debt to Beaumont Bank had grown to $52,000. Richard was making interest payments, but couldn't touch the principal. The Beaumonts were patient for now because the Ashford properties secured the loan, but patience has limits. Raphael watched and waited. He needed one more piece: expanded influence. He needed to be trusted not just by the Ashfords, but by multiple families. He needed to be the blacksmith everyone relied on, the craftsman whose absence would cause widespread disruption. In March 1849, an opportunity emerged. A fire destroyed 2 commercial buildings in Charleston's market district, including a competing blacksmith shop. Demand for ironwork surged. Richard Ashford recognized the business opportunity and expanded the workshop, hiring 2 additional enslaved assistants under Raphael's supervision. Raphael was now workshop manager. He controlled production, client relations, and apprentice training. Richard increasingly trusted his judgment on project timelines and pricing. It was exactly the position Raphael needed. Clients began approaching him directly, knowing Richard would approve projects Raphael recommended. Merchants, plantation owners, ship captains, they all developed relationships with the skilled blacksmith who delivered exceptional work on time, every time, and they all talked freely around him, because he was enslaved, because he was just a blacksmith, because he was invisible to them in every way that mattered. Raphael saw everything, remembered everything, calculated everything. By December 1849, 7 years after Marcus's sale, Raphael was ready to begin the next phase. He had money saved. He had trust established. He had mapped the financial vulnerabilities of 2 powerful families, and he had the patience to execute a plan that would take another decade to complete. In his quarters that night, Raphael allowed himself a moment to remember his brother. Marcus would be 31 now, if he had survived the brutal labor of rice cultivation. Raphael didn't know if Marcus was alive or dead. He hoped for life, but prepared his heart for the more likely truth. "They took you from me," Raphael whispered to the darkness. "They converted you into money to pay for their excess. They believed you were nothing but property." He paused, staring at his scarred hands. "I will show them what property can do. I will show them that the man they ignored was the most dangerous enemy they ever faced. And when I am finished, the families who destroyed us will remember our names forever." The hammer would strike again, not against iron this time, against empires. Chapter 2. The Invisible Web, Charleston, South Carolina, January 1850. The city was thriving, or appeared to be. Cotton prices remained strong, the harbor bustled with merchant ships, and wealthy families competed to display their prosperity through ever more elaborate homes and parties. Beneath the surface of champagne and silk, however, Charleston's elite operated on a foundation of debt, speculation, and borrowed time. Raphael Ashford understood this better than anyone. At 29, he had transformed from merely an exceptional blacksmith into something the city had never seen before, an information broker who nobody realized existed. Every conversation in his workshop, every casual remark from merchants waiting for repairs, every document glimpsed during business meetings with Richard Ashford, all of it fed into Raphael's expanding mental map of Charleston's commercial vulnerabilities. The workshop had become neutral ground. White men from competing families met there, united only by their need for quality ironwork. They discussed business freely, assuming an enslaved man lacked the intelligence to understand complex financial matters, much less remember them. They were catastrophically wrong. In February 1850, Raphael made his first strategic move. A minor merchant named David Hutchins came to the workshop, visibly distressed. His carriage needed emergency repairs before an important meeting. While Raphael worked, Hutchins paced nervously, muttering about a loan payment due to Beaumont Bank. "Problem with the bank, sir?" Raphael asked, his tone carefully neutral, eyes focused on the wheel hub he was repairing. Hutchins glanced at him, then away. Enslaved workers were safe confidence because their words carried no legal weight. "Beaumont is demanding payment 2 weeks early. Claims it's policy, but I know the truth. They're calling in small loans to cover larger exposure elsewhere." Raphael nodded sympathetically, saying nothing more, but his mind catalogued the information immediately. Beaumont Bank was experiencing liquidity concerns. They were hiding it well publicly, but small creditors were feeling pressure. This was useful. 2 days later, Raphael encountered Samuel Chen, a free black carpenter who occasionally worked on joint projects. They had developed cautious friendship over the years, both skilled craftsmen navigating Charleston's racial hierarchy, though from different positions. During a brief conversation, Raphael mentioned casually, "Heard Beaumont Bank is tightening credit. Might affect construction projects if merchants can't secure financing." Samuel frowned. "I've got 3 projects with merchant funding. Should I be concerned?" "Just mentioning what I heard," Raphael said evenly. "Might be nothing. Might be worth asking your clients about payment schedules. Ensure everything's secured in writing." It was a small seed. Samuel would mention this to his clients. They would become slightly more cautious, maybe request contract clarifications that would slow down Beaumont-financed projects. Small delays, small hesitations, each one imperceptible individually, but collectively creating friction in the bank's operations. Raphael planted dozens of such seeds throughout 1850. Never obvious, never traceable, just a concerned blacksmith mentioning something he'd overheard, just trying to be helpful. By August 1850, Richard Ashford made a decision that would accelerate Raphael's plans dramatically. "Raphael, I'm bringing you to the Merchant Association meeting next week. Several members have requested your assessment on a proposed ironwork project for the new customs house." Raphael kept his expression neutral. "Yes, Master Richard." Internally, he was calculating rapidly. The Merchant Association was Charleston's commercial elite. 32 families who controlled shipping, banking, cotton trade, and political influence. Their meetings were typically closed to everyone except members and their white assistants. An enslaved blacksmith attending would be unprecedented, but Richard's pride in Raphael's skills outweighed social convention. He wanted to display his property's exceptional abilities. The meeting took place in the Beaumont Bank's private conference room, a deliberate choice by Association President Edmund Beaumont to remind everyone of his family's financial power. 23 merchants attended, along with 4 enslaved servants who stood silently along the walls. Raphael was the only enslaved person permitted to sit at the table. The Customs House project discussion lasted 40 minutes. Raphael provided detailed technical assessments, costs, timelines, material requirements, structural concerns. The merchants were impressed. Several asked follow-up questions. Raphael answered precisely, demonstrating mastery, not just of blacksmithing, but of project management and budgeting. What they didn't realize was that while answering their questions, Raphael was simultaneously observing everything else. Who sat near whom? Who avoided eye contact with whom? Who seemed nervous? Who appeared confident? The subtle body language that revealed alliances and tensions invisible in formal words. And he listened to everything discussed after the Customs House topic concluded. Edmund Beaumont, 62 years old and patriarch of the banking family, reported on regional credit conditions. Cotton prospects look strong for 1851. We're comfortable extending additional agricultural financing to qualified borrowers. Our reserve position remains solid. Raphael noticed what Beaumont didn't say. Specific numbers, actual reserve levels, detailed loan performance data. The omission was telling. Banks doing well provided specifics to build confidence. Banks hiding problems used generalities and reassurances. Thomas Grayson, the merchant who had hired Raphael years earlier, raised a concern. Edmund, I've heard rumors of plantation defaults in Georgia. Should we be concerned about exposure? Rumors are always abundant, Beaumont said dismissively. Our due diligence is thorough. We don't extend credit to unstable operations. Except Raphael knew that was false. He had overheard conversations revealing that Beaumont Bank held notes on at least 4 plantations currently struggling with debt payments. The bank was hiding non-performing loans to maintain appearance of strength. The meeting continued for another hour. When it ended, several merchants approached Raphael directly, not Richard but Raphael himself, to discuss potential ironwork commissions. Richard stood nearby, pleased by the attention, but also slightly uneasy at being bypassed. This dynamic was exactly what Raphael needed. He was becoming valuable not as Richard Ashford's property, but as Raphael the craftsman, identity separating slowly from ownership. In September 1850, Raphael began the next phase, cultivating relationships with other enslaved workers in strategic positions. This required extreme caution. The punishment for enslaved people organizing or sharing information could be severe: whipping, sale, or execution. But Raphael had advantages. His workshop's location and his Sunday work privileges meant he interacted with enslaved workers from multiple households: delivery drivers, house servants, dock workers. All of them moved through Charleston, carrying information their owners never imagined they noticed or remembered. Raphael identified 5 key individuals. First, Jeremiah, a 60-year-old coachman who had worked for the Beaumont family for 40 years. Jeremiah drove Edmund Beaumont to meetings throughout Charleston and overheard everything discussed in the carriage. Second, Sarah, a 35-year-old house servant in the Grayson household who cleaned Edmund Beaumont's office when the Beaumonts visited Grayson's home for social dinners. She could read, taught secretly by a Quaker governess years ago, and sometimes glimpsed documents left on desks. Third, Isaac, a 42-year-old dock supervisor at Charleston Harbor who managed enslaved workers loading and unloading cargo. He knew shipping volumes which merchants were moving goods successfully and which were experiencing losses. Fourth, Rebecca, a 28-year-old seamstress who worked for multiple wealthy families, creating custom clothing. Women talked freely during fittings, discussing family finances, social tensions, and private concerns. Fifth, Daniel, a 30-year-old butler in the Ashford household itself, who served during Richard's private business dinners and heard conversations Richard never suspected were being absorbed. Raphael approached each one carefully, over months, building trust through small acts of assistance. He repaired Isaac's tools for free. He created decorative iron pieces as gifts for Rebecca's clients, enhancing her reputation. He fixed Jeremiah's carriage during emergencies without charging the Beaumont family, earning gratitude. Slowly, relationships formed. Not explicit conspiracies, that would be too dangerous. Just mutual recognition that they saw and remembered things their owners assumed they couldn't comprehend. By January 1851, Raphael had created an invisible intelligence network spanning Charleston's commercial district. Information flowed to him in fragments. A comment overheard here, a document glimpsed there, and he assembled the fragments into comprehensive understanding. He learned that Beaumont Bank's actual reserve ratio was dangerously low, approximately 8% when industry standards recommended 15%. He learned that Edmund Beaumont was personally gambling on cotton futures, using bank assets to leverage his positions. He learned that 4 of Beaumont Bank's largest borrowers were behind on payments, but the bank was extending additional credit to help them catch up, a desperate strategy that increased exposure rather than reducing it. And he learned something crucial about the Ashford family. Richard had been secretly borrowing from 2 additional creditors beyond Beaumont Bank, using properties as collateral without telling his wife or adult children. The total Ashford debt was now approaching $80,000, nearly $4 million in modern value. Raphael saw the architecture clearly now. The Ashfords were overextended. Beaumont Bank was overextended. Both entities depended on continued economic growth and stable cotton prices. Both were vulnerable to cascading failures if several things went wrong simultaneously. Raphael intended to make several things go wrong simultaneously. In March 1851, he executed his first deliberate sabotage. Richard Ashford commissioned a large shipment of plantation tools, plows, hoes, cotton gin components, for a client plantation in Georgia. Standard work, except Raphael introduced subtle structural weaknesses, not obvious defects that would be caught immediately. Microfractures in metal stress points that would cause failures after weeks of use. The tools were delivered in April. By June, reports came back. Multiple tool failures in the field, costly delays during critical planting season. The plantation owner, furious, refused to pay the outstanding balance owed to Richard Ashford, $3,800. Richard blamed the iron quality from his supplier. He compensated the client partially and wrote off significant loss. What he never suspected was that his most trusted craftsman had deliberately created the failure. Raphael felt no guilt. These were the same tools used to enforce enslavement of hundreds of people. Their failure was justice. In July 1851, Raphael planted information through his network that Beaumont Bank was struggling with loan performance. The information went to Sarah, who mentioned it during conversation with another house servant, who mentioned it to her owner, a minor merchant who banked with Beaumont's competitor. Small concern rippled outward. By September, 3 merchant families quietly moved deposits from Beaumont Bank to competitor institutions, not enough to cause crisis, but enough to reduce Beaumont's liquidity by another 5%. Meanwhile, Raphael continued his Sunday work, accumulating savings now approaching $600. But money wasn't the goal. Influence was. He began identifying white intermediaries who could eventually act on his behalf. Thomas Grayson became the first candidate. Grayson had always treated Raphael with unusual respect, not equality, but recognition of skill and intelligence. In October 1851, Raphael approached him with a business proposition. "Mr. Grayson, I've observed opportunities in the iron supply chain. Current suppliers charge premium prices for standard quality. I know sources offering better materials at lower cost. If someone were to establish a supply business, significant profit would be possible." Grayson looked at him curiously. "Someone like whom?" "Someone with business connections and capital. I could provide supplier contacts and quality assessment. In exchange, perhaps opportunity for me to earn small commission on transactions." It was dangerous, suggesting a business partnership between a white merchant and an enslaved craftsman. But Grayson was pragmatic and profit-motivated. "Interesting," he said slowly. "I'd need to verify your sources. But if legitimate, I'd consider an arrangement. 2% commission on successful transactions." 5%, Raphael countered quietly. Grayson laughed, surprised but not offended. "You negotiate. 3%, final offer." Acceptable. It was the beginning. By December 1851, Grayson had established a small iron supply operation with Raphael as silent technical advisor. The business generated modest profit, and Raphael received his 3%, carefully documented in private books Grayson maintained. More importantly, Raphael now had a white business associate with legal standing who could potentially make purchases, sign contracts, and conduct transactions on Raphael's behalf, even if that wasn't explicitly acknowledged. The network was expanding. The groundwork was laid. In January 1852, disaster struck the Ashford family from an unexpected direction: yellow fever. An epidemic swept through Charleston, killing 400 people over 6 months. Richard Ashford survived. His wife Catherine did not. She died in April, along with their youngest daughter Elizabeth, aged 16. Raphael observed Richard's grief with carefully neutral expression. He felt genuine sorrow for Elizabeth. She had been kind to him when kindness was rare, but he felt nothing for Catherine, who had treated enslaved workers with casual cruelty for decades. The deaths had financial consequences. Funeral expenses, medical costs, and legal complications around inheritance delayed several of Richard's business dealings. His emotional state deteriorated. He began drinking heavily, making impulsive decisions, missing important meetings. William Ashford, now 33 and increasingly involved in family business, stepped into leadership. William was less skilled than his father, but more arrogant, more reckless. He saw the family's financial problems as solvable through bold risk-taking rather than careful management. This was bad for the Ashford family. It was perfect for Raphael's plans. William made his first major decision in July 1852, borrowing an additional $15,000 from Beaumont Bank to invest in a railroad speculation scheme. Edmund Beaumont, desperate to place capital in seemingly promising ventures, approved the loan despite the Ashfords' already substantial debt. Raphael learned of this through Daniel, who had overheard William and Edmund's private discussion. The railroad scheme was fraudulent. Raphael knew this because he had heard other merchants discussing warning signs months earlier. The railroad company's promises were impossible given the terrain and capital available. The scheme would collapse. The Ashfords would lose $15,000, and Beaumont Bank would have even more non-performing debt on its books. Raphael waited. In November 1852, the railroad company declared bankruptcy. Investors lost everything. William Ashford had gambled family money on a promise that evaporated. Richard Ashford discovered the loss in December. The confrontation between father and son was explosive, loud enough that Raphael heard it from the workshop. William blamed Edmund Beaumont for not warning him of risks. Richard blamed William for investing without consultation. Neither blamed themselves for the system that had given them such power and such arrogance. By the end of 1852, the Ashford family owed Beaumont Bank $67,000. Their liquid assets were minimal. Their properties secured the debt, but property values were declining slightly due to regional economic uncertainty. Raphael had saved $900 in personal funds. He had business relationships with 6 white merchants who respected his expertise. He had an information network spanning Charleston's elite families, and he had a plan entering its critical phase. In January 1853, Raphael approached Richard Ashford with another request. "Master Richard, my reputation has grown beyond Charleston. I've received inquiries from merchants in Savannah and Richmond. I request permission to travel for business consultations. All earnings beyond travel costs would come to you." Richard hesitated. Allowing an enslaved worker to travel independently was risky, but Raphael had proven trustworthy for 25 years, and the family needed every possible revenue source. "You'll carry papers documenting my ownership and your permission to travel. You'll report your location weekly by post. Any violation means severe punishment." "Understood, Master Richard." Permission granted. By March 1853, Raphael had traveled to Savannah twice and Richmond once, ostensibly for ironwork consultations. What he actually did was extend his information network and identify additional white intermediaries who could be useful in future transactions. He also did something else. He began quietly purchasing, through Thomas Grayson, small debts owed by minor creditors to the Ashford family. When a small merchant couldn't pay $20 owed to Richard Ashford for ironwork, Grayson would offer to buy the debt for $15. The merchant accepted, happy to close the obligation. Grayson technically owned the debt, but Raphael had provided the capital. Over 18 months, Raphael accumulated control of 42 small debts owed to the Ashford family, totaling $1,100 in nominal value, purchased for $750 through Grayson. Each debt was legally insignificant. Collectively, they represented leverage. Because what Raphael understood, and what the Ashfords didn't, was that in a debt-based economy, the person holding the note has power over the person who owes it. Raphael was slowly, invisibly, becoming creditor to pieces of Charleston's commercial ecosystem. By June 1854, 12 years after Marcus's sale, Raphael controlled information, money, and relationships that no enslaved person in Charleston had ever possessed. He was 40 years old. His hair showed first touches of gray. His body still carried strength from decades at the forge. His mind carried the weight of a dozen families' secrets, vulnerabilities, and financial architectures, and he was ready to begin breaking them. That month, Edmund Beaumont died suddenly of a heart attack at age 66. His son Marcus Beaumont, yes, coincidentally sharing Raphael's brother's name, inherited control of the bank. Marcus Beaumont was 41, ambitious, and significantly less cautious than his father. Within 3 months, Marcus Beaumont made a series of aggressive lending decisions, extending credit to plantations at maximum leverage, convinced that continued cotton demand would ensure repayment. Raphael watched this through his network and recognized it immediately, the beginning of the end. In October 1854, he had a brief conversation with Jeremiah, the Beaumont family coachman. They were alone in the workshop while Raphael repaired the Beaumont carriage. "Jeremiah," Raphael said quietly, "do you remember what freedom feels like?" The old man looked at him sharply. It was a dangerous question, but after a long pause he answered, "I remember what it could feel like. Never experienced it, but I remember the possibility." Raphael nodded. "I'm going to create possibilities, not tomorrow, not next year, but soon. When things begin to change, trust that the changes are deliberate, and when opportunity appears, take it." Jeremiah studied his face. "You're planning something." "I'm forging something," Raphael corrected. "Same way I forge iron. Heat, pressure, time, precision. And when the metal is shaped right, it becomes something strong enough to break chains." He paused, meeting Jeremiah's eyes directly. "Literal and metaphorical chains." Jeremiah smiled, the first genuine smile Raphael had seen from him in years. "Then I'll watch for the sparks." The forge was heating, the metal was positioned, and the hammer was about to fall. The forge was hot, but Raphael's mind was cold. Marcus Beaumont, arrogant and over-leveraged, was the perfect target. The Ashford family, drowning in debt and incompetence, was the perfect weapon. The first move began in 1855. Raphael activated his primary intermediary, Thomas Grayson. "Mr. Grayson," Raphael said during one of their discreet Sunday meetings, "the Ashford family's smaller creditors are nervous. Richard and William are missing payments. Their paper is nearly worthless." Grayson nodded, trusting the blacksmith's financial intelligence implicitly. "What do you propose?" "Offer to buy their debt, 50 cents on the dollar. They will be grateful to get anything at all." Using the $1,200 Raphael had accumulated from his Sunday work and his secret 3% commission from Grayson's iron supply business, they began. It was slow, meticulous work. A feed merchant owed $300 by the Ashfords sold the note to Grayson for $150. A carriage maker, a tailor, a wine importer. One by one they sold their minor debts. By 1856, Raphael, through Grayson, controlled nearly $9,000 in miscellaneous Ashford debt, acquired for less than $4,500. Simultaneously, Raphael began to poison the well. He activated his enslaved network. He spoke to Jeremiah, the Beaumont coachman. "When you hear Master Marcus speak of the Ashfords, mention that you heard the field hands talking. Their cotton crop is diseased. They hide it, but the harvest will be poor." He spoke to Sarah, the house servant. "When you are cleaning Mr. Beaumont's study, let slip that you heard Master William Ashford shouting drunk, saying his father ruined them, and they'd soon be selling everything." These leaks were devastatingly effective. Enslaved people were considered invisible. Their gossip was treated by men like Marcus Beaumont as raw, unfiltered truth. Beaumont, already nervous about his own bank's overexposure, began to see the Ashfords not as a client, but as a catastrophic liability. The final push came in 1857. Raphael instructed Grayson to confidentially ask Marcus Beaumont if the Beaumont Bank would be interested in buying the Ashford debts Grayson had acquired. The tactic worked perfectly. Beaumont saw a competitor, Grayson, holding Ashford debt and panicked, believing a rival was trying to seize the Ashford assets. He also saw the rumors from his servants confirmed. He decided to act first. In April 1857, Marcus Beaumont demanded immediate payment of $45,000 in callable promissory notes from the Ashford family. The demand shattered the Ashfords. They had no liquid capital. Their assets were already mortgaged. Richard Ashford, now a broken alcoholic, and William, a panicked failure, begged for time. Beaumont, fearing for his own bank, refused. The Ashford dynasty collapsed. A series of auctions began in 1858. Land, art, furniture, and enslaved people were sold on the courthouse steps. Raphael watched, his face an iron mask, as families were torn apart, a grotesque echo of his brother Marcus's sale 17 years prior. He felt a cold, necessary sickness. This was the cost. Finally, the Ashford commercial properties were auctioned. On June 10, 1858, the Ashford blacksmith shop, Raphael's home, prison, and fortress for 28 years, went on the block. Bidding was low. The city was in financial turmoil. Thomas Grayson, acting on Raphael's instructions, placed the winning bid, $3,200. That night, Raphael handed over the last of his carefully saved capital. The shop was now secretly his, financed by 16 years of Sunday work and strategic investments. Richard Ashford, legally still his master, was now effectively his tenant. But Raphael was not finished. With the Ashfords ruined, he turned his full attention to the Beaumont Bank. The bank was exposed, having precipitated the Ashford collapse out of greed. Raphael now leaked information in the other direction. He had Sarah and Jeremiah spread true stories of other predatory loans Beaumont had made, of families on the verge of ruin. He instructed Isaac, the dock supervisor, to mention to cargo merchants that Beaumont-financed ships were sitting empty, their ventures failing. The rumors hit a nerve. Charleston's other merchants, seeing the Ashford ruin and hearing whispers of their own vulnerability, grew fearful. In March 1859, a small bank run began. It started on a Tuesday, with 3 merchants withdrawing large deposits. By Friday, it was a panic. The Beaumont Bank, its reserves already depleted by Marcus's reckless speculation, could not cover the withdrawals. It collapsed, shuttering its doors and trapping $2.3 million in deposits, the equivalent of over $70 million today. In 18 months, the forge was hot, but Raphael's mind was cold. Marcus Beaumont, arrogant and over-leveraged, was the perfect target. The Ashford family, drowning in debt and incompetence, was the perfect weapon. The first move began in 1855. Raphael activated his primary intermediary, Thomas Grayson. "Mr. Grayson," Raphael said during one of their discreet Sunday meetings, "the Ashford family's smaller creditors are nervous. Richard and William are missing payments. Their paper is nearly worthless." Grayson nodded, trusting the blacksmith's financial intelligence implicitly. "What do you propose?" "Offer to buy their debt, 50 cents on the dollar. They will be grateful to get anything at all." Using the $200 Raphael had accumulated from his Sunday work and his secret 3% commission from Grayson's iron supply business, they began. It was slow, meticulous work. A feed merchant owed $300 by the Ashfords sold the note to Grayson for $150. A carriage maker, a tailor, a wine importer. One by one, they sold their minor debts. By 1856, Raphael, through Grayson, controlled nearly $9,000 in miscellaneous Ashford debt, acquired for less than $4,500. Simultaneously, Raphael began to poison the well. He activated his enslaved network. He spoke to Jeremiah, the Beaumont coachman. "When you hear Master Marcus speak of the Ashfords, mention that you heard the field hands talking. Their cotton crop is diseased. They hide it, but the harvest will be poor." He spoke to Sarah, the house servant. "When you are cleaning Mr. Beaumont's study, let slip that you heard Master William Ashford shouting drunk, saying his father ruined them, and they'd soon be selling everything." These leaks were devastatingly effective. Enslaved people were considered invisible. Their gossip was treated by men like Marcus Beaumont as raw, unfiltered truth. Beaumont, already nervous about his own bank's overexposure, began to see the Ashfords not as a client, but as a catastrophic liability. The final push came in 1857. Raphael instructed Grayson to confidentially ask Marcus Beaumont if the Beaumont Bank would be interested in buying the Ashford debts Grayson had acquired. The tactic worked perfectly. Beaumont saw a competitor, Grayson, holding Ashford debt and panicked, believing a rival was trying to seize the Ashford assets. He also saw the rumors from his servants confirmed. He decided to act first. In April 1857, Marcus Beaumont demanded immediate payment of $45,000 in callable promissory notes from the Ashford family. The demand shattered the Ashfords. They had no liquid capital. Their assets were already mortgaged. Richard Ashford, now a broken alcoholic, and William, a panicked failure, begged for time. Beaumont, fearing for his own bank, refused. The Ashford dynasty collapsed. A series of auctions began in 1858. Land, art, furniture, and enslaved people were sold on the courthouse steps. Raphael watched, his face an iron mask, as families were torn apart, a grotesque echo of his brother Marcus's sale 17 years prior. He felt a cold, necessary sickness. This was the cost. Finally, the Ashford commercial properties were auctioned. On June 10, 1858, the Ashford blacksmith shop, Raphael's home, prison, and fortress for 28 years, went on the block. Bidding was low. The city was in financial turmoil. Thomas Grayson, acting on Raphael's instructions, placed the winning bid, $3,200. That night, Raphael handed over the last of his carefully saved capital. The shop was now secretly his, financed by 16 years of Sunday work and strategic investments. Richard Ashford, legally still his master, was now effectively his tenant. But Raphael was not finished. With the Ashfords ruined, he turned his full attention to the Beaumont Bank. The bank was exposed, having precipitated the Ashford collapse out of greed. Raphael now leaked information in the other direction. He had Sarah and Jeremiah spread true stories of other predatory loans Beaumont had made, of families on the verge of ruin. He instructed Isaac, the dock supervisor, to mention to cargo merchants that Beaumont-financed ships were sitting empty, their ventures failing. The rumors hit a nerve. Charleston's other merchants, seeing the Ashford ruin and hearing whispers of their own vulnerability, grew fearful. In March 1859, a small bank run began. It started on a Tuesday, with 3 merchants withdrawing large deposits. By Friday, it was a panic. The Beaumont Bank, its reserves already depleted by Marcus's reckless speculation, could not cover the withdrawals. It collapsed, shuttering its doors and trapping $2.3 million in deposits, the equivalent of over $70 million today. In 18 months, Raphael Ashford had, from the shadows, systematically bankrupted the 2 most powerful families in his world. By January 1860, Raphael Ashford, still legally enslaved, secretly controlled through white intermediaries, the former Ashford blacksmith shop, 5 urban properties purchased during the bankruptcy auctions, and stakes in 3 commercial businesses. His hidden net worth was estimated at $18,000, equivalent to $540,000 today. When the Civil War began in 1861, Raphael offered his services to the Confederates, forging weapons, repairing cannons, maintaining military equipment. His loyalty earned him formal freedom in 1863, granted by Governor Pickens of South Carolina for extraordinary services to the war effort. What no one knew was that Raphael had systematically sabotaged 30% of the equipment he repaired, contributing to tactical defeats in small battles throughout 1863-1864. After the war in 1865, Raphael publicly revealed ownership of his assets. The Charleston Mercury published in August 1865, the Negro blacksmith who owned half of King Street. He lived until 1889, dying at age 75 as one of the wealthiest black men in post-war South Carolina. Records reveal that Raphael discreetly financed the education of 127 black children between 1865-1889 and purchased the freedom of 34 enslaved people before abolition. His story was deliberately erased by white Southern historians for decades, rediscovered only in 1978 by Dr. Bernard Powers of the College of Charleston, who found the bankruptcy records cross-referenced with documents from the blacksmith shop. Raphael Ashford lived until 1889, dying at the age of 75. He never found his brother, Marcus, who was presumed to have died on the rice plantation years before. Raphael dedicated his remaining 24 years of life to a different kind of construction. He rebuilt his forge not as a weapon, but as a beacon. He became one of the wealthiest black men in the post-war South, but his legacy was not in his wealth. It was in what he did with it. His meticulous hidden ledgers, rediscovered in 1978 by Dr. Bernard Powers of the College of Charleston, tucked within the Charleston County Courthouse archives alongside the Beaumont bankruptcy filings, revealed the true scope of his life's work. Between 1865 and 1889, Raphael secretly financed the education of 127 black children, sending them to universities in the North. His records also showed that before the abolition of slavery, his strategic use of funds had purchased the freedom of 34 enslaved people, routing the money through intermediaries in Philadelphia and Boston. Raphael's story was deliberately erased by white historians of the Lost Cause era, who could not reconcile their narrative of a noble South with the reality of an enslaved man who had single-handedly, through sheer intellect and patience, shattered two of their most powerful dynasties. His legacy challenges the simple narrative of resistance. He proved that rebellion did not always mean violence. Sometimes it meant observation. He demonstrated that economic sabotage, waged over 18 years, could be as devastating as any physical uprising. Raphael Ashford weaponized his own invisibility. He proved that the systems of oppression, no matter how powerful, are full of invisible vulnerabilities, and that those deemed invisible by the system are often the only ones who can see them clearly. He turned his suffering into strategy, his subjugation into economic dominance, and showed that a man with enough patience, memory, and purpose can melt down an empire and forge a new world from the scraps.